Good evening. I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Welcoming back Mary Kissel from her adventure, her great success out west. Mary, you enjoyed yourself enormously.
I did. I took a trail ride and didn't break anything, John.
Wyoming?
Idaho.
And
Utah.
Montana?
No, alas,
okay.
no. Next trip.
And you enjoyed the wide open spaces. The understanding about why you go west is because Glory lives there. Did you meet Glory on the trail, Mary?
I did. I saw the Grand Tetons for the first time.
Yes.
It's something everybody should have a chance to see. It's amazing.
And it's a very big country.
A very big country, very few people out there.
And did you enjoy the Westerners? Did you find any difference from the cliches of the East and that sort of thing?
Well, the steaks are better out there.
Steaks are better. The sky's bigger.
Yeah, and the rodeo was a lot of fun.
And she went to a rodeo. I went to a rodeo a year ago, and Mary and I were newbies at rodeos, and they are amazing.
Really
Can you believe
fun.
they grow up with that, Mary?
No, I can't. I saw an 11-year-old on the back of a horse barrel racing. It was incredible.
It's as routine as a Little League game here back east. I mean, it's all, well, in Florida, it's as routine as a swimming meet. I understand. But
like
still,
that.
but rodeo is routine, and it's a gift if you live where rodeos are commonplace. We're moving now to a rodeo that's happening in Washington. And at this time, the Roundup has a head count, what is officially known as a whip count. We're joined now by David Drucker of the Washington Examiner. We begin in the Senate. David reports on the Congress, and we're going to ask him to do double duty. There are many rumors in all directions, but there are also indications of the procedure. David, a very good evening to you. Thank you for this. We go to the Senate immediately. This is a joint resolution. It will go to the Senate and the House. The Senate has, out of Foreign Relations, reported the authorization to the use of military force. However, the next step is not obvious. David, 60 votes. Why do we hear now that the authorization used 60 votes? How does it work? Good evening to you, David.
Good evening, John. And look, the Senate can do anything the Senate wants, but the way it has worked over the past several years is that it takes 60 votes to get anything through, especially anything momentous. Now, I'm not sure yet that everybody that usually filibusters is necessarily going to filibuster. However, I believe that Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid likes the idea that it would take some Republican votes to get this thing through the Senate. The Democrats have 53 votes. In theory, they could pass it all by themselves. They don't actually have the votes to do that on this subject matter, but a 60-vote threshold means that Republicans have to be a part of the equation.
And David, it's 60 votes to get the bill to the floor, just to clarify?
Yeah, well, we can get very in the weeds. There are, motions to proceed that can be filibustered, and then you have the motion to proceed itself, which requires 60 votes. And then you have additional procedural votes. And so you could theoretically have a number of procedural votes that require 60 before you eventually get to a place where you only need 51. That is the reason that the Senate is technically reconvening from its August recess on Friday. The full Senate won't be in. It won't be a normal day, but Harry Reid is technically ringing the bell for the beginning of the fall tomorrow to make sure that if there are a number of procedural votes needed, the clock, in a sense, can start ticking on Friday. It's as opposed to late Monday afternoon when the Congress is scheduled to return officially from recess.
Right now, the Washington Post head count has 23 senators for, 14 against, and 10 leaning no, 53 in between. And the Senate begins the process to get to the vote of the authorization for the use of military force. We allow the mysteries of the Senate, we draw the curtain again, and we turn to the House, because this is where it gets really fun. David, I'm told that Ed Royce, chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, is considering not writing his own authorization, as he can, not even especially because he couldn't do it. He can certainly do it, but because no one wants to take possession of it in the House. I'm also told that they can take up the Senate's authorization. Is that correct, David?
That is correct. Now, for my reporting, let's back up a second here. For my reporting, the House is most likely going to let the Senate vote first. And And if the resolution were to fail in the Senate, the House might not even bring it up. But let's assume, for the sake of argument, the Senate were to pass this. There are a number of options that Speaker Boehner has, and in the House, the Speaker runs everything for how this can proceed. One way is to let the Foreign Affairs Chairman, Ed Royce, write something. The other is to have the leadership team write it. Currently, you have a Democratic resolution being written by Chris Van Hollen and Jerry Connolly. There's also a Republican resolution being written, and there's some alternatives out there being authored, one by Representative Devin Nunes out of California. Any of these can proceed through Foreign Affairs, or they can all go straight to the floor. And I think that a major calculation would be this. If you put a war resolution in Foreign Affairs, can it pass? Right now, today, I'm not convinced that Senate resolution, which is heading to the floor, which passed out of the Foreign Relations Committee on Wednesday, I'm not convinced that that could actually get out of Foreign Affairs in the House. And therefore, the Speaker might have to calculate, if he wants this thing to get a floor vote, regardless of how it's going to go, that it might have to bypass the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
Okay, let's say that happens, David, and the Speaker and Eric Cantor, the leader of the Republican Party, decide that they want to move forward here. They vocally express their support for the bill. Is there a possibility then that we see a Republican minority allying here with the vast number of Democrats, maybe a Democratic majority, to get it passed in the House?
Well, Mary, that's the key question. And so a couple of things. One, the only way this thing's going to clear the House is with a Republican minority joining with a large number of Democrats. Now, from my understanding and from the information I have, Republicans, even Republicans inclined to support this for various reasons, are not going to lend their vote, most of them won't, unless the president can convince most of the 200 House Democrats to vote for it. And when I say most, I mean at least 150, if not more. And you're simply not going to find a lot of Republicans to try and push this over the top without a huge number of Democrats. And even then, right now there's a huge difficulty in finding a lot of Republican votes. And one of the key reasons is even a lot of hawkish Republicans and Republicans who generally would support an effort like this simply don't trust the president's leadership. They don't like his military strategy for Syria. They don't like his diplomatic strategy, and so they don't know exactly what it is that they're voting for. And then on top of that, you have to look at the public polls and the calls that are coming into the offices and where conservative activists are generally. And so you're simply not going to get a ton of Republicans for this, but you're not going to get really any Republicans for this unless the president can convince. And this is the number that I've sort of come up with from talking to people, at least 150 out of 200 Democrats, if not more, to support it.
David, quickly, I'm told Representative Clyburn, who's in leadership in the House, Democratic leadership, from South Carolina, I'm told that he's telling anyone who will ask that 99% of the information coming in from his constituents is against. Is that consistent with your information of the rest of the reporting?
Yeah, that's everything that we're hearing. All of the numbers. Now, look, I mean, members of Congress can cook the books if they want, but it makes sense with the polling. We're hearing things like, I received, 1,200 calls in the past 3 days, and, 3 people were in favor. I received 860 calls, and 6 people were in favor. I received 200 calls, and nobody was in favor. So I honestly believe that nobody is hearing from their constituents a lot of support for this. I don't think the administration has made a strong case in public yet, and that's what it's going to take if they want to get this done. Things can change. It's early. Congress isn't back yet. A lot of people haven't been briefed yet. A lot of people haven't been pressed yet by the president, by their leadership. But right now it doesn't look good. And keep in mind, Republican leaders are not going to whip this. It is up to the president, it's up to Pelosi, and it's up to Reid.
David Drucker, Washington Examiner. The rodeo in Washington right now is hesitating loudly. I will say, just in this, the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal, Mary's an member of the editorial board, as well as the host of WSJ.com's Opinion Journal each day. The editorial board of the Wall Street Journal has endorsed the president's action in Syria.
Yes, we have.
Pending final language, but
we're not thrilled about
Yes,
it, John.
right.
But yes, we have
Yes.
endorsed it.
David Drucker, I'm John Batchelor. We'll have more rodeo in a moment. This is The John Batchelor Show.